you.
Liz Mills, Jeffrey Koval,
Here.
and Richard Dow.
Here.
So the approval of the minutes from last time, there was one correction I wanted to make on there, I think. It's that I was listed under the community garden as one of the subcommittee members, and I think it was more of the cleanup.
So with that, do we just approve it with that change?
Yeah.
I motion.
A second. All in favor?
All those in favor? Aye. Here we go.
See, we're all learning too.
You get to learn with us.
Yeah.
Zach usually does this and he's a lawyer.
All right.
Should we start with the old business?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the township cleanup, does anybody have anything to say about that?
Who's gonna go first?
You want something?
Yeah, I got a few things.
Sure.
As far as the township cleanup goes, most of the things we talked about on a sidebar, and that was, the sign-up list, having a place for their email address, and also, where did you hear about this? So that we know where to focus the effort. And there's today, okay. We also, Dawn and I spoke about the need for a wheelbarrow, you know, at least, one.
I did mention, or Kayla mentioned in the emails that people, when they volunteered, asked if they had any to bring any down,
Right.
but nobody ended up having
And-
anything. But I think it would be good,
And as far as we need to do a tool inventory, and when people, when we're giving, basically, like the last time people just went and picked up what tool they wanted. We need more like a sign-out process, because that way we know where, what went where, to keep accountability to it, because especially, it's basically publicly owned property, that's needs to be kept track of. Storage shed, we spoke about the storage shed. If we were gonna have one on the property or not. I actually took a look, there's a big container there. Apparently that's owned by the Rancocas Valley Little League, and who knows, there might be enough space in that.
Well, I know Zach put them somewhere, cause we have something already set up.
Cause we could also have a lockbox. I just walked around and looked
Okay.
and saw what people have, and they have a lockbox, and, they have that big
Are you talking
container.
about for the garden?
Yeah, for the,
Okay.
yeah, we're on the community garden topic right
Oh, we
now.
are? I
I
thought
thought
we
we
were on
were
cleanup.
Cleanup.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Oh, boy, I blew that one.
You're on to new
Ooh.
business.
I mean, you went 2 minutes ahead and we were like, yep, North Shores, yep.
Well, the community garden would still be an old business, isn't it?
That's true.
in there?
Technically.
Okay, sorry, clean up.
But the township cleanup.
Well, the tools and all that
Yes,
apply.
that's why I was
And then I
thinking you
switched
were
over,
going on
I'm
the
sorry,
right
I'm sorry.
path.
So all that applied, except when I went to the shed.
Yes.
So, yeah, there's that.
I think it went great for the advertising and people showing up. I think some things to make it a little more, I don't say better, but, is, we definitely need more supplies, like you were saying. Zach recommended that we need 5 more grabbers at least. But it's hard to say, how many people are gonna show up at each event. But at least they'll be available if they need them. Who would request a grabber and from whom?
I can check with Sherry.
Okay.
And I actually can go back to my list on, the cleanup now.
Okay.
The cleanup, I think we touched base with it, or maybe I touched base with Zach. The bags that we have should be the next grade of contractor bags.
Yeah.
They rip too easy,
Yep.
and the contractor grade bags are worth it. You're getting the bang for the buck with the contractor.
Especially I noticed we pick up a lot of metal.
No, yeah, anything edgy, and it's gonna, or if you're dragging it through the woods, you got the brambles, something's gonna catch it,
Right.
which is what happened to me, and then tear it all apart, cause I hit the woods over there off of Grand Street. But, and also, as far as that goes with the community cleanup, I wasn't sure what our process is to get the township Department of Public Works to follow up on any large piles, which I now have on Grand Street, for them to pick it up. I guess when Wayne was available with the pickup truck, but there was a bunch of basically irrigation piping, tubing, and it might have been a little excessive to put on into the back of the pickup. I'm not sure what size, but box he has, but so we need to have that path of how we're going to link, either through Josh Brown or whoever
Well, I
he
think
wants to.
Zach was contacting the Department of
Public Works.
Public Works.
Right to
pick
this,
it up.
I don't know who to the
So you're saying
supervisor.
it's still there on
Yeah,
Grand Street?
it'll need to be addressed at some point. Let's see, so I had the bags, and we talked all about that, the pickup, make sure that I don't have anything like this here.
Zach did mention something about for the township actually having a lot of people out in Vest cleaning up the week before the cleanup. So there might be an opportunity to organize better with them.
Right.
Not cannibalize each other and spread out cleanup, so, they're most bang out of our buck.
And that's the whole thing, getting that vest, out
They were doing it, I think, ahead of time.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But
It's
even
just-
so, there's still so much to go.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think we beat that,
Yep.
we got that down.
So I think having, not necessarily, like music playing at the beginning, it kind of makes it a little more casual. It was kind of like a weird, awkward, everybody waiting for something to start, so I think if we
Sure.
kind of like have music playing and, what if we had asked a brewery or somewhere if they would give a coupon if people had showed up to, yeah.
Who did that?
I don't know,
Somebody did
I
that.
don't know.
Oh, you did it for
The garden.
Somebody.
Right?
But I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
And I can't do it every time.
right. No.
sure you can.
Would
Come on.
it be legal for a township committee to ask a brewery to do something like that legally?
Well,
You decided to do it because you own it and you just decided, right? But can we ask somebody?
in my opinion, I wouldn't see any reason why not.
Okay.
You're not,
They can
you're
volunteer.
not strong arming them,
No.
If we had the code enforcement officer go around and say, hey, you wanna,
Right,
put something in, then that'd be a little different, in
Right.
my opinion, but yeah, I don't see any, but we also have a lawyer on,
Yeah.
what are we paying him by, depending on if we're paying him by the hour, if we're paying by the month, because if we're paying by the hour, that question could cost, $750 or
right.
1,000, but that's another option, we could actually run it past, the lawyer. While we're still on, and this would be for cleanup day, community, garden, I touched base with Zach on this, I think I touched base with you on this, and I'm not really reading this so great, maybe it's on here somewhere, but we have the liability issue, and that
It is
we're
for
taking the
new
class, you on the Zoom call,
Right.
you were the morning with me, I did both Zoom calls.
Oh.
The morning Zoom call, they went long into, liabilities, and basically that the lawyer literally said, the lawyers will go after the volunteers, right, and the fact that we have volunteers. And as a committee, we are actually liable.
Right,
As a commission, we're not. It's saying here, gold standard is commission, essentially immune
Right.
to liability.
so
So-
what we had decided to do for the next one is, you know how I had that sign-in sheet? At the top of the sign-in sheet, it's gonna say, this is going to be also, you're the waiver, the liability waiver
Yeah,
too.
we need the waivers. I
That
talked,
way you're not having a waiver per person type of situation,
Right.
you're just having them sign in and agreeing to that.
I talked to Rich DeFalco about it, Chris was busy, and, he said that his memory is that the township insurance should cover it. It does mention that in here that the insurance may cover it, but we need to have that in writing to
Sure.
protect ourselves
Yeah.
here.
We'll definitely do it
you
on
know,
the next sign-in.
Yeah, so we need to go, I told Rich that too, we would be needing that.
Okay.
So, that's something that was kinda hammered down in there. And the lawyer that is on this, on that call, the UCF call, he's actually a mayor of another township.
Is that for any activity that the committee is leading?
Is
Or is
that
that
anything
just
that-
for shade tree
It,
creation?
it's the way I wrote it, it's for it's anything right here. you know.
We can clarify that on
yeah.
Wednesday's meeting.
The next Zoom call, is he
Yeah.
gonna be on that Zoom call?
Someone else might.
Or
know
one,
if
and
he's-
one or the other, he might be on one of
Regardless,
them,
any
cause there's
event-
two.
Any event that we would organize,
You know.
technically we'd be the responsible.
Right,
body.
because we're organizing,
Yeah.
it. We voted to
Even-
organize the event.
I mean, even
So-
here, it's just like a regular company, whether it's a state entity, volunteer
Yeah.
organization, or anything like that. Somebody, trips on the way here.
Well, and there's also the fact they're on state township property
Yeah.
most of the time too, you know, so there's also that. Remember, we joked about that, somebody, you know, and we turned it into a joke, oh, we're doing deniability? Oh, okay.
When would we like the next cleanup to be? I was thinking, do we wanna do it before or after something big like the car show? Before? Or do you think they're gonna wreck it after the car show and it's better to do it on that?
Well,
I
that's,
think Public Works.
that's usually do cleanup, I think. I think we should be doing it proactive. To beautify it for, fellow.
So we'll look at some dates and maybe send an email out of what would work, cause I
There's
yeah.
two events coming up, isn't there?
Or there's
a
Family
car
Fun Day,
show and Family Fun Day, yeah.
there's an egg hunt on
So
April 12th.
last year, we did it right before Family Fun Day, like the weekend before,
Okay,
family
Oh.
day. Yeah, because it's down in the park, so we did the park there.
mhm,
Then the car show, we didn't do one last year before, but I think we should.
okay. Is Family Fun Day just in that park?
I don't know, that's what it was last year, was just in the park.
Okay.
I don't know,
assume
I was
that's true.
comatose
So
last
maybe
night.
we just do a park cleanup for that particular one, and then we do a township one for, before the car show.
Mm.
But that'd be like 2 weeks back to back.
So we will basically be doing a designated cleanup area
So,
for these, for what you're talking
actually, more
about.
than likely then if it is back to back, because yeah, right, they're 3 weeks, they're 2 weeks apart. I think, so then we should just do one in the beginning of April, or like the week before family, and do the
Well, it's May.
entire.
May 17th is the
May.
Family Fun Day, so
Yeah,
you
so
wanna
do
do
the
the beginning of
weekend
May?
before, yeah. The beginning of May, why don't we do that?
Right.
And then just do everything all at once, because
Yeah.
when's the car show? Is it the
31st.
31st? So,
Okay, next order of business.
So that's what we're gonna do then, so we're writing this down and.
Yes, and we'll email, once we get Zach here, to kind of figure out an exact date, I guess, to see what everybody else, I don't wanna leave them out of that part.
So is there also April 22nd?
Yeah, I was
Yes,
gonna say,
sorry.
we have the business cleanup,
Right.
right, in the middle of the day.
right, so April 22nd is the next one, because it is Earth Day, so that's why we actually, planned it for that day, even though it's a Tuesday, so we're gonna see if we can get people to come out on a Tuesday for those who work from home, or are just retired, or at home, or whatever the case may be, to, sign for that. Here are the extra cards, no, those are all for him. So he goes downtown to the businesses and changes the, information on there, so
Remember
that,
I said I wanted to come and bring out a few things?
so that with the environmental committee,
I don't want
with the environmental committee, we're not wasting paper right now.
We're not one?
We're not wasting paper,
Good,
we're using.
yeah.
So April 22nd is the next one. I really don't know how many people to expect, you know, I don't think it's gonna be as many as there was.
Well, the dispensary showed up to the cleanup, there, a couple of them did, Mass Grow in particular.
Yeah, they came,
you
they
know.
hold in, it's fun.
So those guys are pretty, you know, if they're open that day, they're open,
Yeah,
they're closed one day
yeah.
during the week.
I was actually gonna get with all the businesses that are
Yeah.
downtown and see if we can, I actually already had Main Street Mount Holly contact all the businesses to see if they would come out to do it, or get somebody from their business to come out to do it for that day. So, I'll follow up with them on that, and see where that goes.
So we're working with Main Street now, how we do that?
Yeah. Okay, next order of business, the grants status updates.
Yeah, so for the one we've been talking about for, the BPU certification, there's still technical issues with the website. BPU themselves have come back to us and said, we're still having the technical issues, we'll contact you. It's not, we're not being penalized for missing the deadline, cause they're aware it's their fault, more or less.
Perfect.
But yeah, as soon as we hear anything, I'll copy everybody, or at least Zach, and he'll tell everybody. But there are some other new grant issues that Rich and I have been reviewing, and if we do jump around and, or pull the trigger on any
specifically, there's an ANJEC. What that acronym is, I have to look into this book, and I really don't want to, but, its eligibility requirement is commission. So I called the contact lady, Ms. Ritter, twice, and she didn't answer back. So now I've gotta give her an email, push it, and I'll be in writing, so she'll be accountable
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
But, so I wanted clarification on that. Now, somebody that was in the environmental committee in the past, she reached out to me today and she said that, we have some wording, we have some technical difficulties or, mistakes in the way our ordinance is written that may need to be clarified. They may let us slide or they may not.
Okay.
So at some point, since I,
Maybe
yeah.
committee/commission?
Yeah, well, I talked to a couple of the council members, and I know from my own past experience, and in that Zoom call, that lawyer talked about what I'm gonna touch on, and that is, it's really about power, about authority. A commission is not controlled and can't be just disbanded, they don't serve at will. So in the past, a long time ago, back in the 90s, we had a commission, and the commission went rogue, and the council wasn't happy with them, so like with the historical commission, as their terms expired, they didn't appoint.
Right.
So it just became, a non-entity. Then when they came back, Randy Rothmel came in with some green people and pushed for it, and they went with committee. And when I grabbed the mayor and the deputy mayor, he said, well, this is why, Rich, blah, 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 blah. Because I was like, why not a commission?
Right.
And the Shade Creek Commission has even more power. That actually has state statute power. Shade Tree Commission is really potent.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've
Especially
got,
New Jersey.
was it New Jersey? What'd you say?
Especially New Jersey.
Yeah, well, that's all I know really is New Jersey, but, as far as this goes. But yeah, so that's the issue with this grant, what we were talking about, cause Zach sent it out to us because it came from Millennial Grant Company that works for the township to
Right.
Josh, from Josh to Zach, from Zach to us. And, that's the process that we've been going through with that. But that's, that, we did get a grant from them in the past, and that's what paid for the community garden next to the Verizon building. So, we could, if we get that money, we could use it for, I wrote down all the different things, and a butterfly garden would be one like they have over there. But, there's, bottom line is Jeff and I have seen a lot of money available, but it's a matter of getting our ducks in order as far as, like this little issue here, committee or commission, which is
Right.
qualified. And then later down the road, we're gonna come across what we touched base on, and that is, we need to partner with a, nonprofit. And I spoke to one of our, volunteers on Saturday about any nonprofit apparently can bridge us. We were looking at Main Street, Mount Holly, it has to be a C3, C4 won't do it. But, so at some point we need to look at that. So there's some several different grant, issues that we have to iron out as being newbies at this.
Okay.
You agree, Jeff?
Yeah, no, and to that point, we didn't get that clarification for certain eligibility, but there was one grant we were looking for involves open spaces. And on the township website, we do have a report and a list of open spaces in Mount Holly. It was last updated in 2014. So if there's a newer list available for what we can do to look that information up, that might help us get, I think that one was $1,500 off the bat.
Well, ironically, that is one of the things that ANJEC grant will pay for, is for us to do an inventory of open space, connectivity with other towns. There's so much open space availability, things that we can do, and with that particular grant. So there are grants to prepare us for another grant, so we use this grant, and then what we do with that will qualify us for another grant. And we're talking booyah here. There is a lot of money available.
Do you think there was an open spaces list in the,
Latest report.
yes,
That's what I was just thinking.
yeah,
The,
so it was an R.
report.
Like a
Planning.
yeah.
Yeah.
I printed it out, so
Yeah.
I will look at it and see if it's there, yeah.
I think it might,
And another requirement is that one of us be on the planning board. Or the joint land use board is what we have actually.
Zach.
And
Yeah, Zach is, yeah.
You know, so we got that checked off as well. So we've got that one thing there. And we also need, a buy-in from the township. And through this other project I was involved in, saving the, Mount Holly Woods, historic Mount Holly Woods. I've already had a couple of discussions with Rich and the mayor and deputy mayor, about them doing a buy-in. It looks, you know, in other words, backing us. Cause for any Green Acres grant, we need to have a government entity
Right.
that works it. And then the government entity actually ends up owning it and can either stay owning it, but that's their liability at that point, or hand it off to a nonprofit, which is this lot that we're working on right now. We're very close to having Green Acres buy that, but we had to have the county as the go-between.
Right.
And it's gonna be hand off to the Rancoca Conservancy. They don't actually want it. So we may, you know, look forward to doing something with that later. But now it looks, hopefully the township is gonna actually be involved with this. You know, so that's a great thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Community garden. How'd it go? What's the updates? What are we looking at for opening new?
We got 5 raised beds. There are issues with extra, parts. Or not having enough parts, but it was all good. We got 5 raised beds. Really good participation by the community, and you know, people learning how to even make raised beds. It was really good. In terms of opening date, we still need to get the land, not mowed, but tilled, and then put down and leveled, and then put the beds down. So Zach was to reach out to get that accomplished.
To whom?
Randy?
So, Randy, who?
Roll
Rollo?
He-
Okay,
That's my son.
okay, and that's
He's part of
Department
it.
of Public Works or?
No.
Oh, just a volunteer?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. So, just for clarity, what exactly are we doing? We're rototilling and then putting the beds on top of it?
Yeah. Because there's a lot of grass and everything else.
Well, a weed bog would kill that, but, you know,
It'd be a lot easier.
yeah. Well, rototilling isn't, it's fun, interesting, cause I'm in the middle of rototilling right now. I
Well, then you just
rototill,
come over and-
I rototill every year. Well, if I had a Troy built, I would, but I have a bouncy and it's electric,
Yeah.
you know, but anyhow, so yeah,
That was the intent,
yeah.
and then have the paper, brought in, the paper boards brought in, the paper, the boxes, brought in, so we could, keep the weeds out, and then put the
You
weed
mean
block down.
cardboard?
Cardboard,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
used, yeah.
And so I think 419 is probably a little aggressive. Maybe what we
Okay.
could do is, I mean, it's already 391. We could do a seed starting party or something
That's
like
fine.
that.
The 19th is the day before Easter.
We should probably not do it.
Was it Friday? Oh, I like the idea of a seed starting party.
Everyone's a seat.
That's awesome. And I would collect, I mean, we need to probably put bring us your,
Somebody
party.
posted something on Facebook about extra seeds.
I saw it.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you wanna keep,
I think between the seeds and the cardboard, which I could not find my words for, I think that between those two, start having a collection party for that.
Well, as far as seeds go, it's awfully late. We're really talking about putting in seedlings, not, you're talking, we're under the impression that folks are gonna grow from seed at this late in the year?
well,
No.
it usually grows in about April.
Not as
Okay.
seeds. You put in seedlings, seeds. I've been growing a long time, and seeds, You know, you start your seeds in your home
Mhm.
January,
Well,
February.
we don't really have a choice in this matter, cause
Yeah.
we have to get
Well,
it.
it would be the commodity, the people that are gardening would bring it in, wouldn't they?
Well, they can also buy their own
Yeah,
too.
that's what I mean,
So these are like
yeah.
the extras if anybody wants to,
Okay.
I guess, use them. So.
Somebody, commented on one of the Facebook posts, are we doing anything to keep like animals out? or
Yeah, I
anything?
saw that too.
It was a good point, but you know, there's not much we can do.
We can.
You know, we can have an armed guard or something.
I think,
Yeah, I don't think there's anything gonna be.
Yeah.
There's
with
nothing
the
we can do.
animals.
Okay.
Well,
Hopefully animals
I don't
will
know
be
if
less
there's
of a
a-
concern.
Everything-
Yeah, but
Deer,
Squirrels,
Yeah.
and
squirrels, bunnies.
squirrels break into everything in that area.
When I took a lot of photos, and when I was reviewing and editing them, I'm thinking that we have a lot of space there, you know, nice piece of, you know, lot. I think that we really should have the beds further apart. Right now, you're about the width, literally the width of a wheelbarrow
So
is
can I
all
make,
you
yeah,
have.
so can I make a recommendation, because I think there's supposed to be a subcommittee, so maybe the subcommittees can come up with all these ideas, because I think there's a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
that is a new business, so once we jump to that, we'll like. Okay, great. Let's see. So 419 is probably not gonna work, but we will,
Especially since,
yes.
so do we want to go closer to, we're gonna have to do it at some point, maybe the weekend after
Okay.
Easter.
I mean, regardless, this is the first year, so if there's gonna be, you know, bumps in the road, and we'll figure it out, yeah, as we go along, so it's totally fine. Okay, communications. Township IT administrators created an official EAC.
Oh, wait a
email
second, wait a
address.
second. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but, did we do old business?
Yes.
I thought we had more on the old business for some reason. Well- Well, it's, under, here's something that really would fall under the grants. That is for anything our volunteers do, is we also need to track their hours. Because the hours, volunteer hours, go towards the grant in a lot of cases. So at some point, you know, those need to be logged.
What
'Cause
we
it's-
would do is take, say, 45 people at the cleanup, that was $2
And
a
for
work.
two, I mean, we really,
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna rack.
And then for the community
Yeah.
garden, how many people,
Yeah,
how
so
many
we,
hours.
yeah, so that goes back in the community garden line item and the cleanup is,
Jeff,
is
is
for
that something
anything
you
else.
think you can keep track of?
Totally, no.
Even if you can't be there, we could tell you the number of people, and then that's something you kind of keep a running tally on.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna cover it, but when, I think Zach said in the email about we're having a, you know, organizational email set up. We need to use one of their, you know, online drives or something to track that. We just gotta get an Excel sheet and we'll keep that as it goes.
Okay. Yeah, so that was part of our next conversation.
Yeah, that's why I saw the email
Right.
address.
Because we were talking about doing the Google Drive, but he was saying Outlook's gotta be separate.
It's better that way.
I don't know how to do that.
We'll figure it out.
Oh wait, it says not
It's not
allowed,
allowed.
only
Yes.
to 11 seconds.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I
Yeah.
asked her about that today.
I still have the flash drive from the old committee, so I'm gonna give that to you, so you can upload all that.
Okay.
Because one flash drive floating around with all the old info is not
And then as I get things, I'll distribute.
Yeah, and even if we have one point of access to that, you can still, like how we share all those photos from the weekend, like, we can give permissions and stuff to, you know, assist everybody.
So we will do like a Google shared thing, and then make sure that you just import information as it comes in, I guess.
Well, if you could check with IT, just to see if they would, what the sharing permissions are, and if you need help with that, just let me know.
Okay.
But yeah, we would wanna be able to share like at least one file out from the, government site to everyone else.
Okay.
So we would be able to use that as a dump, instead of setting up a Google Drive, and that way everything is controlled by the township, rather than you having access to the Google and then, destroying everything. Kind of thing. Not saying that you would, but, yeah, I work in risk for my job, so I shouldn't be concerned about it, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
And I know I tried to work with Sherry last year on that, and they were not receptive to talking to me. So I'm
Okay.
glad that they were talking to you.
I did see that and kind of knew that it would be
Yeah.
your question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, anything else with communications?
But getting back to it, yeah, that's what we should do, and we can do an Excel sheet very easily, track all of the, events, put in all the information, and whatever information.
Like, I would
brings
love to
in.
have a cloud something, because right now it's on my work computer and I wanna get it off of my work computer. You know all the information I have. So, okay. Alright, new business, subcommittee assignments for Dawn and John. So I was on the last one, I don't know if you heard that, I was on for the community garden, but I think that was an error, because I wanted to do the tune-up. So, if you guys have a preference of what kind of subcommittee you would be a part of,
What are the, remind me of something?
there's,
We don't need to know like that.
I think it was something like community garden, the cleanup, the grants.
Grants,
Yeah.
Sustainable New Jersey.
You guys were on that, right? That were, there was that.
Trying to find the meeting notes.
Yeah, I remember reading the meeting minutes.
Go to wherever you need except for grants. I'm not a grants
Yeah.
person.
Are you guys okay doing
I can do
the
the garden.
garden, since you kind of are spearheading that?
I also live right next to it.
Perfect. So you could be the guard and keep that all
Yeah,
in
we seem to be there.
Yeah, no, I didn't keep
And
them out of
kids.
mind.
Okay, next one is the tabling for upcoming Earth Day fairs, one at Smithville and one at RV. My thought is, there's no point of having a table, cause nobody's gonna come and see it. It's kind of more of just getting our name out there, like no one's gonna come up to you and be like, what is this about, cause that just doesn't happen. So, if there's another way we can get involved with those days, in terms of just getting our name out there, cause I don't know what help we could do with just having a table out there. So,
Not unless you have anything planned.
Give out CPAC.
oh, that's a good idea.
I'm sorry.
Give out CPAC.
CPAC.
He's like, no, not until next year in January.
It'll be good for next year. It'll be good for next year. We'll stamp 2026 on them.
We had a fun time.
No, God.
Okay, that's
We're
fine,
buddies
that's
now.
fine.
Yeah, it's really something.
So what do you guys think about Earth Day fairs, and is it worth it, and what we should do?
I think at this point it may be too late for us, because if we're going to have any kind of impact, we will need to have something, either kind of a calendar of events,
Yeah.
which is something that I wanted to talk about next time, is basically scheduling out for the year, all of these events.
And we can go into the non calendar?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, for
Um,
next year.
Next year, even these committee meetings, but, basically scheduling out at least for a few months, because going there with no value add.
Right. No, I agree.
Well, there's-
At the same time, I will be going to both of them.
I mean, you can just put up signs if you wanna be
Yeah.
part of this or do anything, here is our info. So at least we're getting the word out, and a group of people who are interested in Earth Day activities.
Well, the seed packet idea for next year, if we were to do it next year, we maybe even get, to save on cost, just a rubber stamp that says Environmental Action Committee, you stamp each seed packet, and we'll take a look and see what size space we have a stamp made that size. We can stamp that on anything we want too, for that matter,
Yeah.
it's renewable,
Oh, it's, yeah, it's better
You
than
know?
stickers.
that's for sure.
Okay,
But that should be a subcommittee thing, I would think, is those kind of tabling fairs and those tabling events, is like the community garden one,
Sure.
that we figure out what kind of giveaways we can do, the cleanup, kind of thing, you guys would be responsible for scheduling, and then
Yeah.
also, coming up with some sort of giveaway that we
Right.
would do
Yeah.
for the
Right.
future years.
let's talk about the next meeting, of the subcommittee for tabling,
For
those
events.
types of events.
Well, so the subcommittee, I wrote down events subcommittee, so that's really
Yep.
what we would have.
Perfect.
I think then we may get bogged down with too many subcommittees. I mean,
Yeah.
we're at 4 subcommittees right now, there's
Really?
6 of us, 7 of us.
Yeah, but it also
So-
keeps you defined.
Yeah,
you
but
know, it keeps it a little-
each is kind of responsible for their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of
Kinda gives
crossover, no
them
matter
more
what we do, there's a lot of crossover,
Yeah.
Right,
like for the
yeah.
grants, for example.
Totally. Okay, no mo May.
Yeah, what is that?
So that's something that I wanted to add to the agenda for this week, for this month rather. It's a movement that was started in the UK to basically have residents pause the mowing of their grass lawns for a period of time. In the UK they did May, and it's kind of jumped over into the US in the last 6 or 7 years. I was doing some research on it today, whether it's beneficial, whether it's not. Turns out that it's not necessarily beneficial, because if you just let it go, let your lawn go for a period of time, and then just up and mow it again, it doesn't leave much time for the critters and insects and birds and stuff that you want to get in there actually to make their homes. But the recommendation was to have like a every other week mow or every 2.5 weeks mow, which, you know, allows the grass to grow a little bit, allows flowers to come through, allows birds and bees and such to get into there.
Would
The
you-
other,
Sorry.
sorry,
No, go ahead.
the other thing I found that biologists and horticulturists recommend is basically doing away with your whole lawn and obviously planting native plants and shrubs and trees, etc., which we're not gonna get residents to do that. I wish we could, that would be amazing. That's my goal at my house.
That's
Yeah,
me.
what I'm doing. I'm trying
I
to
put-
diet all my grass I pulled up last year.
Grass is
That's just-
useless.
Yeah, it's totally useless. I have signs in the front which, of the house, excuse the mess, I'm feeding the bees, or how, whatever it says.
Right,
You
so I was thinking that maybe we could have a push somehow to encourage residents to do something like that, to plant pollinating plants, to plant butterfly bushes, shrubs,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
native plants. I don't know what that looks like, it's just something that I wanted to float to the
Sure.
group.
Can you create something that we could post? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not
post,
a
yeah,
proposal, I mean, even just on Facebook of being, trying to get the word out of getting people to do something like that.
I absolutely can do that, I just wanna make sure that we are clear on what that is, so we can discuss offline or something. It can be another subcommittee, whatever. But there's so many different directions to go
Yeah.
in, so I don't wanna just, I can create a couple different posts and ideas, and I'll share it with the group.
Right.
Taking a step, well, you-
So, you were saying something about a butterfly garden or another
there was
garden?
there's a butterfly garden that, the environmental committee did, let me give you a ground spot here, right up about 150 feet from your shop on
By
the
the
corner.
Quaker?
yes.
Oh,
The
by
Quaker
Quaker,
Trust.
yeah.
That's actually,
But it's not
you'll see
there.
the Verizon trucks right
Right.
there, that lot is, and there's even unless it's been destroyed, there was a map of what was planted in there.
Yeah, that's all
Um,
been destroyed.
Is it gone?
Well, there's no stuff
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah, but, so, you know, so they made that effort, and that was that JEC grant that was used for that. But yeah, that's a butterfly garden, but to go back to what we were just talking about, this is my wife's pet peeve, what you just brought up, you know. I can't
Lawn?
touch forgot about it, no weed blowing, no, you know. For people that love lawns, the last thing that they love is a dandelion. But the dandelion is one of the first flower for the bees, for pollinating. And I just saw an article, we have the largest die-off of bees that we've ever had. And in case nobody knows, or doesn't know, without the bees, we are in a world of grief.
Right.
And that's hand pollinating like they do with, forget something over in Japan, they hand pollinate. But yeah, without the bees, we have a world of grief. And that's why, as part of what we're doing, what you're bringing forward, you know, that should be thrown in there, you know, as well, that, you know.
I wanna check to see, because the other subcommittee was the Sustainable New Jersey that Zach and I are on.
Mhm.
And I wanna look through the materials that they have and the opportunities that they have. They may have some grants or something there that we could pull from. There's other organizations that I can pull materials from. The other idea I just had with pollinators is maybe seeing if we can partner with a local apiary to have bee boxes put in town somewhere close. I mean, bees travel many miles, but,
Bee boxes are a little tough, because bees, you know, I thought you were gonna go with bat boxes, but.
well, that too.
You know, and things have to be placed perfect. I have a bat box 30 years up there, you know, and it's just in the wrong location, so. But beneficial insects, beneficial critters like you're talking
But if you
about.
work with an apiary, I think that they still tend to the box it's just sponsored at a location, but they will still come and take care of the bees and the honey and all of that.
Well, there's also several type of bees, you know, mason bees is what would be using that block of wood.
36,000 types of bees.
Yeah, you know, but.
400. I
it's-
might have said extra bees. There's a lot of different bees.
Yeah, I started getting into it, I was actually gonna do the whole honey, you know, the hives in the backyard deal, but they are real neighbors aren't so appreciative, especially if they go to the pool. They make a beeline, no pun intended, to any water source, and if your neighbors are between that, your hives and that water source,
Right,
that's a
obviously
big
it would
problem.
be, it should be somewhere that's
It's
not.
got, yeah, one of our
bother
open space
neighbors,
properties, right?
Yeah,
you know.
so
But
I
yeah,
can look into that and come up with some proposals.
Perfect.
If we do go with the seed giveaway for Earth Day in the little table event, we could do wildflowers or something that encourages
Because of
that.
that, yeah,
And
that's a good.
as
Tie
a,
it all together.
I learned this a year or two ago, you can actually buy the wildflowers we plant on the parkway or on the turnpike. And it just blew my mind, there's a website you can buy those wildflowers from. So, you know,
Because you know they're native, right, and they know that you don't need a lot of
Like going down.
Love for it.
treatment, right?
Yeah,
You can't get,
They have like the turnpike has got like.
yeah, like on the island. so-
Yes, yeah.
Yes, please.
township composting,
That was another thing that I
all
thought of.
right?
I would say, so we brought this up last year, there's a guy who runs the environmental club at RV, Brian, I
Mr.
think is.
Green, yeah.
Sure what that name is.
Who's that?
I spoke to him last year about it, he's potentially interested, at least last summer he
Does he
was.
have one at, Park?
Because he has one at RV, and the biggest issue with the township is where would we have it, and requires a lot of maintenance.
Can we do it by Monroe? While
Well,
the garden?
So there are companies that that residents can contract with individually, but the township, I think, sponsors, so like Mount West works with a composting company, and so a resident gets their own bucket, they work with the company who, like, they come once a week or once a month. Mercer County works with one, there's other townships in Burlington County that are working with a composting company, I didn't get around to getting that name, but I can get that information.
Yeah.
Yes, but I will also reach out to,
Yeah, his
I,
name's Kevin, yeah.
if I get his name, I can reach out.
again, have a lot of information on this. There's actually an online publication, Mount Holly Reporter, but right now, we have a Green Acres lot off of Herald Avenue, off of Pine Street. That's where the township contracts with a company to provide compost. They take it up to the Green Acres lot, which we're not sure they can use it for that, but another topic. But anyhow, they take it to the Green Acres lot at the end of Herald. Then they're supposed to take a certain amount of it and put it at the end of the road that goes in next to the park in front of the school over there. What is it? Iron Gate?
Yeah.
You know where the canoe launch is. If you go in, you go past the school. What's the name of that school? My mind is.
Hold
Come
on,
on.
Helmet.
No, the little kid
Sacred Heart.
school. Off of Pine Street. You make the left off of Pine Street towards the football
Brainerd.
field.
Brainerd.
What is it?
Brainerd.
Brainerd.
That's Brainerd? Yeah, so you go down past Brainerd, you go right to where you're gonna actually drive into the water, and right there on the left-hand side is the township compost pile, that they're responsible to put compost there. Nick Sedano, who
Is it
has
just
that
like an
paper.
outdoor thing that they're?
It's
shoveling
you,
into?
and it's not very big, you're gonna, and that's the big thing. They've been trying to, Josh has been, trying to do something with it, but we do have a compost.
He was the one I
Thing.
talked to about it.
Josh?
He did, that we had no compost and that the township wasn't interested.
You talked to Josh?
Yeah.
Oh, no surprise. I'll talk to Josh. But yeah, that you can take that to the bank. I don't know the name of the company right off the
Cause
top
I
of
go to
my head.
Manahawkin to get my compost.
But yeah.
Manahawkin has free compost for residents.
Nick Sedano, I don't know if anyone knows that name, he is the champion of that compost pile thing. I mean, he did an article on it, with his correspondence with Josh, and he's actually, he's going to the Department of Community Affairs to find out about it. But yeah, there is there is a, you know, there is that in place.
Can you connect me with these people who I don't know that
Yeah,
you are familiar with?
Yeah, I'll get that information for you and I'll
Okay.
email it to you.
Thank you.
for
You know.
also doing research for
Sure.
it, so that people that have
Absolutely.
individual content.
Another thought I had was that composting could help the community garden also.
Yeah.
Residents are collecting and willing to donate.
Perfect, thank you.
Bringing back, just to touch base back on, the community garden, one thing we didn't touch base on, which I wrote right down here, soil. I did touch base on space out the beds more, I got that, but I skipped the soil. What are we doing as far as that, the soil? What are we getting it?
We have to get it from a location with the budget that we have.
Okay, so we haven't set, it's not set
It's not
up
set
yet. Okay, that was the answer, it's not set up yet. Okay, sorry.
Google account, we've already talked about that. For the cleanup subcommittee, we talked about this, standardized checklist for contacting businesses, notifying the fire district that had the bathroom open, and then printing the release waivers. So we are good with that. Green teams,
Yeah, I had that put on there, the rest of this I had put on there actually. Green teams, we spoke to a couple of volunteers about green teams and what a green team does. There's only so many of us that are elected, that are appointed to this, you know, to the committee. So we're all like the chiefs, and the green team is like the Indians, you know, motivated Indians, you know, but, you know, we give them the guidance, we set up what project it is. But for example, a green team could be do tree inventory. You know, this is something that was done in the past. We need a tree inventory to qualify for a lot of these grants. The state of New Jersey is all about that. Tree City, you know, designation, which is, you know, something, you know, some people are proud of, you know, but there. So the green team, Lewis was part of the green team way back in the day. Remember Lewis? You know, so there were, you know, people that wanted to participate, but that weren't, you know, they weren't on the committee, right? So we expand, you know, we expand that way. So that, and one of the links that you sent out, which I have not explored, I'm ashamed to say, but I did not explore all those
that's
links.
fine.
But one of the links that you actually sent out was on the state green team program. So, it really is,
So this is another
you know,
subcommittee.
you know, no, we just, we're talking about it as a group,
Okay,
you know, because this green team would be under all of what we decide as a committee.
got it.
You know, they wouldn't answer to like a subcommittee, that wouldn't be the way that would run. So that's the green team issue. So we'll talk about that, moving that forward somewhere along the line, maybe at the next meeting, we'll start looking at different things. I'll research that link a little more maybe. E-waste, I actually emailed, I emailed you about the e-waste, who's in charge of the e-waste. And the reason for that is a college kid up at the College of New Jersey is writing an article, and they contacted me about the e-waste. Do you have e-waste information?
What is e-waste? Can you define?
Yeah, anything electronics.
Electronic.
Yeah, mainly now.
Doesn't the county have a
The county has that function, but we did it one time too. Remember, Louis, we had the computers out there and we had that issue?
Yeah,
You
fixed
know?
it.
Yeah, it was over in Public Works, right? Next to
Yep.
Public Works, right? So we did take care of it, and, I think Jill Toppy was in charge of it at one time, because cause she's not here anymore, I think she left.
So is it worth doing like an e-waste day
Or a flyer.
with these, yeah,
Well,
that we can do?
we need to,
And then we just have
try to
somebody
set
all
up
the time.
where they can dump it if we're gonna tackle it. But e-waste would go all the way down to batteries, with all the LiPo batteries that we have now.
Is this something that we would keep out for like a week?
It would have to, I would say return, a lot of what we're doing isn't reinventing the wheel. It's just actually drawing on something that we did in the past that for some reason got phased out. We can flesh that out.
So,
But-
so the purpose would be to enable
The township
town
residents, not
to do it locally.
locally.
Versus
Go up to
driving
Florence,
Yeah.
right, versus going up to Florence, going to the gatehouse and paying, so,
I would wager the best option for that would actually be working with the Department of Public Works, because that would have to be an ongoing thing.
yeah, it'd have to be on their public
where
works
they
line.
could just have a box or something, and then they would just need to coordinate a drop off. Now, do you still believe, and Kayla may need to correct me on this, the county still charges the township? So we would need to also find money, for that, because I think it
Is it
county
by
should get
or is it by?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, very common, I think. I actually don't know. I did it once. I went up to the county dump and they charge.
They charge you
which
to
is
go to the county
absurd.
dump, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they would charge to come, for us to, because the e-waste may go right to the
I don't
recycling
know.
plant.
Yeah, so that's
You know?
where we would need to talk to
Yeah.
Department of Public Works, because that would be something outside of, I think, our scope and our abilities. We can advertise for it, but there would need to be a permanent place for it.
Right.
And that would be a conversation with the DPW, to be able to have that space, and then also, Dawn also mentioned like paint and all of that, like any kind of hazardous
Well,
material.
that's
That's
a,
great.
But,
but the e-waste is a Governor Murphy, part of the umbrella.
so I mean, it very well could be
of-
that Burlington County does it for, takes it
And
for
we have
free,
grant,
but-
there's grants available
Yeah,
on that.
but that would be a conversation, I think, with DPW, that we can advertise with, but they would have to make a space for us
Right.
to be able to take it, and then deliver it accordingly.
Well, the bottom line with it is the township still has to have an answer to a question of what the policy is and if there's a contact person or not. So at some point, Zach can touch base with Josh or I will, or whoever, but that's a matter of policy. There has to be, there's a burden of responsibility is what there is. And if we could pick up on that, especially when it comes to batteries, because, one of the big leading factors that we push to the recycling, which by the way, when it first started, we actually, anyone remember, we used to get money, we used to get, that's why there was a barcode on your recycle bin, because there was a program where the residents actually got, I forget what it was, if it was a voucher or something, but that was to get people to recycle, because we are charged by, it sounds like by the tonnage, of the tilting or whatever they call it, and the less you have in there, not only is it environmentally the right thing to do, it also actually saves the township on that end. But how it balances out.
Yeah.
But I know that the e-waste has come up, and it's come up with an environmental way.
So can we put Rich and John in charge of the e-waste?
It sounds like
Yeah,
what
I
they're doing.
would actually say that if we can, maybe Kayla, and we would need to find out who this would be, see if we can get somebody from DPW here, for one of our meetings in the coming months, if they'd be willing to. Because I think, I don't know what the rest of your topics are, like poison traps and all that. I assume, once again, we're going to need DPW, and we need to start making friends with them, because they're going to be a huge resource for us, whether it's going to be picking up the bags after major cleanups and those kinds of things.
Well, the poison traps, which is the next one, right now we're having a big problem with owls mostly, and foxes that are dying after they're eating the poison in all those boxes you see around every individual
Are
buildings.
they eating the poison or are they eating the mice who have the
They're
poison?
eating the rats that have the poison in them.
Mm.
And that could be solved with an ordinance. I will certainly be talking to council about it, but an ordinance would prohibit that particular type of poison. But as an environmental group, it kind of falls under our window for discussion at this table at least. But it is huge. It is a huge, and again, it's the ecosystem. You take out your owls, and what they're eating is going to increase. So there's that's a big. I've become aware of it through, you name it. My wife's a major animal lover. So this actually came from her. So I brought this forward. I can check that off. That was a honeydew. Now the foam baggot goes back to the past, and in the past under the environmental committee in the early 2010s, we had organized a viewing, a screening of this movie, Baggot. And I can tell you that so many mothers came to me after this thing and said, my God, I had no idea how bad this is. And, especially for boys, actually, the plastic situation. And that movie, it's not a major production. It's basically a little documentary, but it went over very big back in 2012, I'll say, maybe 2013. But we had the screening over at the Firehouse the relief over on the corner. We had access to that, and we had a screening there. Where we could do a screening now, I don't know, but if all of you take a look at it and agree, but go on YouTube and take a look at this Bagot, you know, and it talks about how plastics are in the system, you know, and how it, you know, really make an effort. Microplastic is basically in every fish you eat now, you know.
It's in us.
So it's 2010 film.
Was that when it came out?
Yeah.
2010? Yeah.
I was gonna say, maybe there's something more recent that touches on that as well as.
It could, yeah, you know, that could be basically the start, maybe find something more recent. Because, for example, one of those things that I think was BPA, and we know BPA was banned in a lot of plastic, so that has been addressed as you know, a standalone. But it was a big thing, you know, like I said, your neighbors over there on Broad Street, there was two women over there that, they were like, oh, thank you, you know, I don't want my son to grow up, you know, with all these health problems, you know, it's something about testosterone, I think. But, so that was the film, the Bagot thing, and again, that's a blast from the past, that's not reinventing the wheel. And, the list of things that you sent out, I didn't know if we all wanted to go down that and see.
Well, you said you haven't really kind of.
I haven't looked them all over, I don't know if anybody else at the table has.
Don't worry about it. I think I had just sent it to you,
Okay.
because you said that you had time to,
No, I think it was the whole list.
was it?
The
Yeah.
full list, yeah, you sent
Yeah,
the list. so
yeah, you
we
sent
can-
the list,
Oh,
yeah.
alright.
And I only got
We
this,
have-
I looked at
we
I got
have-
I actually started, started pages just for it, and I got, I just looked at the first two, Earth Months Challenge and Sustainable New Jersey. I think I looked at the kayak, Rankoka's kayak project, and I think that might be a John Anderson thing. And I didn't see a website, you know, or off the top of my head, you know, John's big on that. And we talked about that in the past, and anything to do with the creek is
They
a
were,
big deal.
all of that I had sent was just ideas of ways that we could kind of dive in a little
Yeah.
bit more into kind of your living room.
It was the Kelly take the extra step deal. Very cool, very
But I
cool.
hadn't researched any of them,
Yeah.
so that's what I was saying, if
Yeah.
anybody wanted to kind of take a dive into it.
Well, I just bought a new laptop, so as soon as that's fired up properly, you know, I'm gonna dive in on quite a bit more. And the last thing that I put on here was establishing a relationship with the Mount Holly Board of Ed and the RV Board of Ed. I've actually already had a discussion with Janet DeFalco, and it will be in the works, if it goes the way, the discussion went. The council will be, either appointing her as a liaison to the school or to the committee, or just sitting, you know, she'll just sit in. And so I have a relationship with Ryan Donnelly. I don't know how well, a little bit, but you know, we're not the best anymore, but Ryan Donnelly on the RV side, because, you know, to combine what we do with the children, you know, and the young people, to give them an appreciation of nature, in particular, you know, teach them about the fact that any litter is bad all the way around, because I mean, that's a big problem. You know, I can tell you right now, I live in a school route from Holbein, and literally every day I've got to go out there and pick up wrappers and whatnot. I'll literally see the kids, and now you can't talk to kids anymore. You know, it's sad as heck. You know, you can't say, hey, you know, could you pick that up, because they give you the finger, even if it's on your surveillance system, don't mean nothing. You know, it doesn't mean a thing. But
I think
so
it takes a maturity level with that kind of thing.
yeah, but it's the younger you start with that interaction,
No, I
you know.
agree. Yeah.
So that is that was something that I tried to do when I was actually on council, was try to work you know, together. Also for shared services, but that's a whole nother thing.
Subcommittee for educational training.
No, it wouldn't be a subcommittee. It'll just be, Janet would be sitting. I don't know if everyone knows. Janet DeFalco is a member of the school board.
Yeah.
And the last name is not just common. It's Rich DeFalco's wife. But you know, so like I said, there's big interest there. High school is a harder deal. Now, someone mentioned this fellow that's in charge of the RV
Mr. Green.
student environmental group.
Yeah.
You know, they were big on the mushrooms. I don't know what they're
No,
doing
they
now.
still are.
Yeah, because I reached out to him and he called back and I missed the call, and then I called him and then we just lost track.
Right.
But it was the same thing, to try to get as much, you know, look at the turnout we had for the cleanup day. If we continue that outreach, and we bring in young people,
Mhm.
you know, and it also works towards, at the cleanup
The
day,
National
somebody was
Honor
talking about
Society.
volunteer
Right,
hours,
Right.
logging volunteer hours, you know, and Holbein, I think last year, they did a leadership program for their 8th graders. So, you know, part of being a leader is, you know, your community, you
Right.
know, and, you know, leading your fellow student body into doing the right thing as far as recycling. And, I didn't write this down, but, the longer I talk, the more things that pop into the old brain. But, what I didn't write down was a lack of recycling cans. In the park area, I actually brought some plastic bottles I picked up home and threw them in my bag, my bucket. But, and that's even township-wide issue. And UEZ funds would plug into that. You know, there is funding for things like that in the UEZ budget, where we've actually had, UEZ actually paid for 2 individuals, I think it was, to just collect recycling. I think they got it through the county, you know, handicap workers that they had from, I forget what that program is. But,
Kayla, do you
yeah.
have access to that UEZ information to see if there's more recycling
I
cans in the
don't,
township?
but, I can,
I'm just saying, because it's the township.
well, the girl that also works in the office, let's use it, so I
Okay.
can
Yeah.
double check with her.
Thank you.
I do not double check for sure.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry I went along with all that stuff, people.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Are you on the UEZ now? Oh, okay. Yeah, well, there you go. You know all about it then. You're a professional, right? My information on that is over 10 years old.
Is the man's name Mr. Green?
Yes,
Fantastic.
yes.
Oh, and you
That
were
is
on,
amazing,
you were,
right?
you were on, and you were on the UEZ
I
board, right?
was.
Yeah, that's
Schedule.
right. I forgot about
That's hard.
So you know what I'm talking about as far as money being available for downtown activities,
Sure, sure.
policing and cleanup.
And he's a hippie too.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's amazing.
He always wears tie-dye. Okay. Matters to be discussed by the public.
Hey,
Does anybody have anything they would like
Yes.
to?
So would I say my name and everything, like the regular
Yes.
meeting guys? Okay, Maureen Taylor Ford, 117 Branch Street. Just following up a little bit. Quickly on the community cleanup, we attended. I think someone had mentioned something about gift certificates. A few years ago, I believe Colonial Cafe had a cleanup. It was a young girl working there, and she actually gave out little certificates. A lot of the high schoolers went because I took my 2 youngest kids at the time, and I had a couple of nieces and nephews here. I think it was like around spring break. This was a few years ago. I can't remember the young girl's name, but I have her information in my phone. But she did give all the kids a card to use if they came back to Colonial. So that would be a great incentive. Just touching base on what Rich said, and I think John said it also about the volunteer hours are important. And I know it's a little bit late in the game to get a table, but tables do matter. Even if one person comes to the table and, you know, it is hard to stand there with everyone walking by you and you think they're not paying attention to you. But if we fuel the tables with the right things, the seedlings, information, things of that nature, I think it would draw in the crowd. A sign for the kids, hey, come do your volunteer work. Our school district still requires volunteer hours in order to graduate. That is not something that Mount Holly has gone away with. Those high schoolers still got to give. Now, whether they're lying about it and having people sign off on their stuff, there's still documentation that has to be given. And I just wanted to say, back to the cleanup. I had showed up with a shopping cart. The tools, I think, do require some accountability. But for me, personally, safety for me, I was just a little bit, and this is the second one I've been to. So this is the second time I haven't seen, like, safety vests. To me, that's the big issue. The more children that show up, there's a young couple that came with 3 or 4 kids. Mm-hmm. These kids have to have some identifying factors that's going to stop people from, just alert people on the road. Because kids will be kids, especially if they run off in front of their parents, They have to have some kind of identifying things. And I brought as many as I have, as I live on 537, and believe me, people, I chase people down specifically when the time changes, because people really walk on that road with no sidewalk. And I'm always, hey, here's safety vest, and they look at me crazy, but they put it on and they walk away. So I would be more than willing to donate that. I'm a thrifty. When I find them at the thrift store, I don't mind, unless there's grant money that can be used. But that should be a really big thing, especially as you try to draw in more high schoolers. I'm a paranoid parent and we're military. So safety to me is everything. When you have people in the street not minding themselves, hey, most of these kids are absent-minded as it is, and they're trying to pick up trash, not putting their head in the street, and all kind of craziness. And I think back to the cleanup. When we're doing these cleanups, my big thing, and when I told that young girl some years ago, I have no problem picking up common areas. Even in the military, I used to get rode up because I was not picking up other people's cigarette butts, okay? So my thing is, what do you do in front of people's properties? Are we holding landlords accountable? I don't mind picking up in common areas, but when you are literally in someone's front yard, that should be considered their property. No one comes on 537 and picks up trash in front of my house. No, I get code enforcements in the mail by Lee constantly. Oh, Marina, yeah, really? Well, stop putting anonymous and tell me who you are, because it's not my trash. No one is coming over there doing that for me. So again, what accountability is the environmental committee going to hold to those landlords if these are repeat offenders that we are constantly picking up trash in front of the same people's house all the time? There has to be a limit. There has to be accountability on some, especially on Pine Street. I'm sorry. There has to be accountability. It's not right. Okay? And if you're going to sit on your stoop and watch me clean up, I mean, come on, guys. There's a level of let me get started. I'm putting a cussing, and my husband's not here to contain me. And I think that was it. Just the volunteer thing. Oh, I was the one who put on the internet about the animal thing. My niece lives around there, and her thing was there's a lot of homeless people back there. How you gonna keep them out of there? Somebody put some absurd thing. The township's gonna put cameras up. How are you gonna keep the vagrants out? There are many vagrants across that river that take up space in that cemetery over there. I've seen them myself. I walk back there enough to know they're doing all kind of stuff back there. So how are you gonna keep them out? How are you going to keep people, even the people that live back there, from just ravaging it because they don't want to go to the farmer's market anymore? They're just going to go. How are you going to secure these people who are paying for these, I guess, boxes, right? If I'm going to pay for that box, I don't mind sharing, but I don't want to get raw blind every time.
Right.
So, and then the animals, of course, we can't do anything about mice and rabbits. That's, hey, people need to understand where their corn comes from. But
I've
deer.
seen other community gardens where they do like an excess of veggies, so then they can give it out to people who need
Yeah,
it.
I'm all for
So if
that.
they know that they're
Yeah,
gonna get that.
if you
then
put
they
it out
should.
there ahead of time, you're gonna stop it in its
Right,
tracks. But
right.
my niece brought this up. She said because people are back there doing all kind of crazy things in the township, they're starting to get back there, but it's a slow get back.
Yeah.
So that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to go to one of the points that she brought up. It was actually mentioned in one of these Zoom, I can't find it here, I'm totally not organized. Anyhow, it was mentioned, one of you may have heard, code enforcement is code enforcement. An environmental action committee, advisory committee, commission, whatever. There's clear demarcation point there, so the environmental committee could do absolutely zero about the issue that you brought up as far as garbage in somebody's yard or whatnot. We can pick it up as environmentalists that we are, or walk on by. But as far as enforcement part goes, Lee needs to get that same thing. He's saying he gets about you anonymous call or whatever. Well, he needs anonymous calls from whoever anonymously walked by and picked up the trash. Wink, wink, nod, nod. But that was, you hit right on something that was actually discussed on a Zoom call on something that we're doing for the, the committee. So I just wanted to put that in there for you, Maureen. And,
Was there any other public comments?
Hi there.
This is going.
Oh, okay. Hi there, Jared Keys, 17 Cherry Street. I just wanted to double down on the tabling part. I work at a college, and I know that everyone thinks that tabling is a dead art, that kids don't care. But if all the other people are tabling thinking the same thing, then that one person be there makes a big difference. I'm a really big advocate and fan of the creation of a calendar that kind of outlines future events. I think that'll be super helpful. And I think maybe something for the community to consider when, coordinating different events or ways of outreach is thinking about what are events that the committee's actively hosting versus what are ways that like the committee, once, they kind of develop like a sense of community and kind of gain connected with folks, how can we kind of coordinate people's actions? So like, for example, thinking about like the e-waste collection, it's like, if we're not able to find the funding to, collect it and do it ourselves, okay, how can we like encourage people maybe like early spring? All right, it's time to kind of go through and sort out your e-waste when you're doing your spring cleaning.
Right.
So it's kind of like a mix of like us directly intervening, but also like giving them the kind of knowledge and agency to like do these things for themselves too. But I had one other thought too. And then for the community garden, I think that the pest concern is kind of valid, and I've seen things online where it's like you put up like nets, like I think the same thing with like greenhouses too, where it's like you can kind of like build different things that kind of hopefully keep folks out, or even at the very least like deter people from like an easy pickings or whatnot. I think that's something that could kind of be maybe introduced as like a next part of the process of the community garden. It's like, okay, cool, we'll help you get the seeds, we'll help you put the dirt down, now we'll teach you like how to maintain, when to know, how to build all these different things, and kind of just like making it like a work in process to kind of keep the folks who have these lots engaged. So those are some of my thoughts.
Anybody else?
When is the next volunteer day for the public garden? Are we doing another one?
Don't have that yet.
We don't have that yet.
Okay.
That's part of we need to create a calendar.
Okay.
But, we post everything on Facebook and we put it into, the Mount Holly page as well.
I like that idea, that continual training
Yeah,
for the
continual,
garden.
yeah.
That's an excellent idea.
I definitely coordinate people's actions.
Hello, I'm Louis Lopez. I'm a High resident for a very long time. I was part of the green team. And my question is for e-waste. I just, grab them out of the car and put it aside. Some of them was salvageable pool. I restructured it and reboot everything and send it back to there. Look, I just fixed 3 computers, fully loaded. I would say restart the whole window, everything, and start it and give it to. I say, there's some computer that's salvageable. I took computer for a couple of years, and I'm not, what's the problem? Okay, it's a chip. Just move a pin. But pen started like this. And second is, are you taking every privilege that the state of New Jersey for stormwater drain grant? There's a lot of grant out there. And I said we could use some of those. That's a lot. Even from grant from our local news station, NBC 10. They give out grants too, to the New Jersey resident and to school board. That help our community. And my last question is, have you heard this book?
What book is it?
I have that.
This is a great book. I would like to donate it to the Environment and Residency. If you want it, here's I'm donating this. There's a lot of projects you can do.
Thank you.
A lot. I'm donating right here.